Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for joining our lunch today. We hope you're enjoying your lunch. Our panel discussion will start momentarily. We are talking about fast cars and even faster growth of the most popular open-wheel racing series in North America, the NTT INDYCAR Series, spanning 17 races from March to September. And we are looking under the hood and talking about the technology innovations and sophisticated AI data analytics that are in play here, that are driving the growth and excitement and engagement like never before in the sport. Take a look.
This is, and always will be, the greatest spectacle in racing.
Oh! We have a car up and over. Kyle Kirkwood.
You want to see brave racing? They are all going big. 4 wide at Indianapolis.
Joseph Newgarden will win the Indianapolis 500-mile race.
What the switch to the inside. What a move for Will Power. He is the king of corn country.
Hey, you like that?
Like that.
Dixon finishes off the season with another victory. Alex Palou is an NTT INDYCAR Series champion.
Let's go, thank you. Hell of a job this year, boys.
Wow, that was pretty exciting. My pulse is racing. And I think we're ready to start our conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to our stage Tanvir Khan, Chief Digital and Strategy Officer at NTT Data, the title sponsor of the NTT INDYCAR Series since 2019. We also have Mark Miles, CEO of Penske Entertainment, which owns the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and NTT INDYCAR Series and IMS Productions. And of course, our moderator this afternoon, Robert Thompson, Chief Executive at News Corp, parent company of Dow Jones and publisher of the Wall Street Journal. Robert, I turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Christine. This is where the rubber meets the technological road. This is, let's hope it's not a car crash of a conversation. Am I spinning my wheels enough yet?
You're on it, man. You got the puns
Gentlemen,
going.
start your intellectual engines. Okay. First of all, to you, Mark. You're coming off a splendid season of the NTT INDYCAR Series. Record growth in attendance, ratings up. You've got a sale of the product coming soon.
Yes.
So nice product placement. Why this year has been so successful, and what will continue to make INDYCAR successful?
Yeah, well, thanks for the question. I appreciate the soft pitch.
I can't give you a harder one.
I ought to be able to hit that out of the park, and thanks to all of you for being here. Actually, it's kind of there's been several years of growth, but we're growing at a faster pace. And really, I think everything we track, every metric is up. So why is the essence of your question. You know, for us, for many of you, it starts with what some people call product. We call it a sport in this case. And we do believe it's the most compelling form of motorsport on the planet.
You actually have overtaking.
We actually have overtaking. You said that. I didn't say. I'm trying to be good.
Oh, sorry.
But I will say, for example, that overtaking or passing in INDYCAR, a season ago, after 6 races, we had more than twice as many passes as that other open wheel series, which is mostly outside of the U.S., had in their entire championship.
At the foreign one.
Our guys race side by side. There are 27 cars, full-time drivers. 7 of them won races, 9 of them started on the pole, 14 ended up on podiums. You can start in the back and win. So we think it's really compelling, dynamic sport. We have a great partnership with NTT, and we'll talk more about that and the ways that they can help us take enormous amounts of content and make it very interesting to fans. We have a great partnership with NBC. So we have 17 races and 12 broadcast windows, and I'll spare you, the other races are on USA. All the races are on Peacock, so streamers can watch every race live, and the audience keeps going up. So it was the largest audience we've had since 2011. Attendance was up, as you said. So, yeah, and our fans are up. We are up 24% in terms of the number of people in the United States who identify themselves as IndyCar fans versus immediately before the pandemic, and 14% up year over year. So we feel like we got some momentum, and as you referred, it's a good thing because we're about to relicense our media rights, which are in NBC's hands through 2024, and they may extend, but we're certainly out in the market trying to understand the possibilities. You got a suggestion? Let's talk.
Can we do it here now?
Sure.
Tanvir, what was it about IndyCar that prompted NTT Data to partner with the sport, and what do you bring to each other that enhances collectively your expertise and experience?
You know, about a decade or so ago, NTT Data was an up-and-coming IT services company in the US that needed to build a brand. So that time, NTT decided to sponsor Chip Ganassi racing on the IndyCar circuit and become a technology partner. The idea was that racing event gives you an opportunity for client hospitality, and a sports sponsorship helps you with the brand. But something unexpected started happening in the company. Our employees started rallying around the racing theme. Now, in a race, there is one team, one goal. Whether you are a pit crew, whether you're engineering, whether you're a driver, you're a spotter, and that is to win the race. Within corporate organizations, sometimes things don't work like that. The engineering team thinks that their goal is to build the best car ever, even if it comes at the cost of delivering 2 days late and not giving drivers time to practice. Well, you don't win the race. So within our organization, people started rallying around the racing theme. Multidisciplinary teams would come together to solve a business problem like a pit stop. So it started permeating into our culture. So we saw a lot of value in that. In 2009, Mark Miles and our CEO Sawada-san in Tokyo shook hands, and then we became a IT provider and a sponsor for INDYCAR Series. As part of that, obviously we get tremendous brand value, so thank you for that. But we also provide the technology to enhance the fan experience, the driver experience, and the race experience. Think of it as taking real-time data from cars in the middle of the race, converting that data into information, information into insights, insights into action, and implement them all while going 200 miles per hour. On the other side, we are seeing a generational change in the fan base, and we need to make sure that we keep motorsport relevant and interesting for digital natives by giving them a way to immerse in it in a medium of their choice on how they improve and consume content. So it's fascinating.
Can you use data to, what you might call, improve the demographics, the gender demographics? Because a certain program for that other foreign racing series actually introduced a lot of women to that particular unmentionable series.
Oh, you can say it. It's
I forgot. What's it? F something?
I
anyway,
can't remember either.
So can you use data to do the same for IndyCar?
So, we really want to look at what each section of the demographic is interested in and make sure they've got that opportunity to consume that data in a way they want to consume it. Now, what we find with the changing fan base, that the younger people consume content in a way very different from where their parents and their grandparents did.
Yes.
So we need to make the motor racing experience relevant in the digital theme, which is, how do you really put the fan in the driver's seat by giving access to onboard cameras in their mobile apps, giving real-time immersive experience, interactive experience in data. And as the new generation sort of becomes the fan base, we are finding there is more interest in certain aspects of race than others, and then we can customize it to different demographics. So that's helping us increase the diversity of the fan base.
How do you use the data, both from the fans' perspective, but also from your perspective, to commercialize?
Yeah, well, it's fans and other huge constituencies as well. Maybe it'd be helpful if I can avoid going too long to give you the context, the environment we're in. So these cars are going fast, right? At least 200 miles an hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. They're going 240 miles an hour. I'm reading the Elon Musk book, and how do you get rockets up? And we have vibrations and heat and lots of extreme conditions like crashes and the like that we survive and still have to carry on. we raced in 3 different environments in a broad sense. So ovals, permanent facilities, you can imagine how to do that. Street races, temporary street circuits, so on Ocean Drive in Long Beach, around the marina in St. Petersburg, Florida, down around the Renaissance Center and the GM headquarters in Detroit, and so there are 5 altogether. And then there are permanent road courses, so one of them, for example, is a 4-mile track with 12 turns through the woods in Wisconsin. So very different situations. The commonality is fast cars in extreme conditions. So what do you do? So we have 2,000 data points on every car. These are basically sensors that are collecting data from steering, from aerodynamics, from air pressure, RPMs, on and on and on and on. And then we have a box we call a logger. I'm sure that's not a technical term. That collects all that, right? And then through a proprietary Wi-Fi system sends it to nodes. There are always 30 plus nodes around a track. And so by radio, they get the data, it goes there. And then by fiber, it goes to our neuro center. It's a truck with all the technology in it. And then that by fiber, it goes to these constituencies. So the teams absolutely rely on it. They don't want latency. They want real-time quality data that allows them from the pits to direct the race, to keep their drivers safe, and hopefully to win. Our fans are uppermost in our minds about how to attract younger fans. So NBC is a huge user, not just of the data, but the way NTT manipulates it to provide predictive analysis that the commentators can take advantage of. It's on our .coms, on social media. All this stuff is out, pushed as the race is progressing. And then I guess the third constituency is the tracks themselves and our officials. So you go up in race control, and there's all that data goes to one point up there, and they can tell exactly, you couldn't possibly do it by eye. They can see exactly who was in what position, who caused what accident, who to fine, basically, to sanction for violations. And so it's a really very complicated thing, and NTT has been a superb partner in helping us take all that and make ourselves better and help us grow.
Tanvir, how do you change a stadium into a smart space?
So, event logistics are complicated. And managing them, for example, for the Indy 500, 300,000 people go through the gates within a matter of 4 hours. So, these guys stand up the second largest city in Indiana in 4 hours for that race. And managing that number of people, there is a lot of predictive analytics that goes in. What are the wait times on all gates? What are the logistics, managing the stadium? So there is a lot of logistics and technology that goes into just managing those stadiums, both in terms of the logistics and the digital conveniences that fans are getting used to. For example, they want to know how much is the wait time on each concession. And if you want to get a bottle of beer, do you go to this concession or walk 5 steps away or 5 minutes away and get into a line which is only a minute long? So it is that whole concept of smart spaces, bringing all the logistics and the mobile apps together that we sort of designed at INDYCAR, but now are applying in other sports across the country.
And after 6 beers, you'd quite want to know where the bathroom is.
Yes.
If you're together enough to go to the app and check it out. Well, one more Indianapolis point that relates to the other data I was talking about off the track. But under that track, 2.5 miles around, there are 44 cut lines, data lines, cut under the track. So every time each of 33 cars goes over each of 44 lines, all that 2,000 points of data is coming off. It's a terabyte of data that we collect in 3 hours under those extreme conditions. So it really is an amazing thing for the stakeholders as well as for the operation of this massive event.
Mm-hmm. This is a question really for both of you, each in your own way. How do you make INDYCAR, through technology, more sustainable?
So I can tell you what we've done so far, and I would tell you maybe as a motorsport property, we may have been a little late to the green flag, but we're trying to make up for lost time. So Lots of things. So far, we have fully renewable race fuel for the race cars. So it's a second generation sugarcane product. It's not taking any food product out of industry. We have, let's see, there is, our diesel fuel is renewable diesel. So all this equipment gets shipped by trucks from race to race to races and with renewable diesel. With our friends at Firestone, we have, I used to call it guacamole rubber. It's Waiuli rubber, which is grown in the desert. It's very sustainable. It's in places with, and you don't have to ship it like from South America and the like. So very helpful. It's in our alternate tires now. At places like the Indy 500, where we have 300 guests in the morning in a day, the extent to which we can avoid anything going to a landfill through composting and recycling is now getting us great recognition. So far, I think we've done a lot. We'd like to earn the reputation for being the leader in motorsports.
Tanvir?
You know, so this technology that IndyCar does, weight is at a premium in racing. So, a capacitor bank that used to be 200 pounds a few years ago has been shrunk down to, 30, 50 pounds now, and those things flow back into the commercial industries. But overall, for example, we work with the parent company Penske Corporation on the sustainability initiatives, and this will come across like a little sales pitch, but it's just an example. So there are 182 locations that Penske Automotive has across the country that consume energy, gas, electricity, gas, water from 110 utilities. So essentially we collect data from all the utilities, which is electricity, gas, water bill, data from T&E systems like Concur, asset management, etc., and use EPA guidelines to convert all that energy consumption into greenhouse gas emissions. So with that, now you've got by location, by business unit, by function, by time of day, by time of the year, greenhouse gas emissions for each business. With that, you can set up carbon emission goals and have the ability to track. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting with AI. Now, AI can look at trends and say, pick up like operations. Take car dealerships of similar size and similar weather zones and look at their consumption patterns to find which are the ones that are doing much better than anybody else. And once you find that, find out the best practices that are being done. You scan that across the enterprise, and now you have a handbook to reduce carbon emissions that you roll across the enterprise. So we think of ourselves as sort of the electricians and plumbers of sustainability that take your carbon zero mission and implement it using technology. But technology has a big role to play in that.
It's a question for both of you, really. Obviously, technological innovation is important, but how do you balance, say, if one of the competitors has a comparative advantage in technology and it makes the racing that much less interesting?
Yeah, it's a great question. When I started, I came from tennis, didn't know anything about cars. Competition's good in every respect as far as I'm concerned as a starting point. And so we created aero kit packages. So it's the basic chassis is pretty much the same, but you can trim it out the way you want. We had Honda, one of our engine suppliers, and Chevy or GM, the other one, competing on the aero package. It took about 3 months to realize one of them was eating the other's lunch. And so half your teams are not going to have a very good year. To us, that's not very fan-friendly. So we try to walk a line between innovation and giving the teams the possibility to be better, actually car by car in the same team ownership, or better compared to their other team competition, and yet trying to have competition that's more about the driver and where we know the racing is going to be very close. So that's sort of the formula, and I actually think we've nailed it recently.
Yes, Indy is a great equalizer because unlike the other circuit that we don't talk about, it's all about the car.
The F word.
The F word. You want to say the F word?
My mother wouldn't let me say that. Come on.
But that's all about the car.
No, it wasn't you. It was me.
Yeah.
I'm Australian. I use it all the time.
It's about the car. You know in the beginning of the season, who's likely to win. In Indy, the cars are almost the same. It's all about the driver. In fact, Bennett here tries to use AI to predict the outcome of race, but the reality is you can't even predict the outcome of the race in the middle of the race or till the last 30 seconds. And I think the spirit of competition, so even when we use data, the data that's coming in, the data is also available to all teams. So there's the fairly deep insight that all teams have on the performance of the cars competing in that, and they can make decisions regarding pit stops and strategy changes, because that data is a great equalizer, and it really becomes all about the sport and the skill of the driver and the crew supporting them.
Excellent. We'll take some questions from the floor. Yes? Thank you.
So with all this technology, Mark Tremblay, Microsoft, do you think that drivers now have less influence than, let's say, 20 years ago when you didn't have launch control and all that telemetry data? And what is it going to be in 10 years? Will driver have less of an impact or about the same?
I think it's a really interesting question. My belief would be that the driver it's a different kind of driver. AJ Foyt's going to be really mad at me if he hears this answer. And a different kind of driver and a different talent set. Back then it was, sort of gruff, courageous. That was sort of it, right? Now they have to be courageous to be sure, they have to be incredibly fit, but they have to be able to read the data. And one of the key things is, they're surrounded in all this data, even during a race. So they have to be able to interpret that and talk to the engineers on the other end of the radio as they go to win a race. So it goes into their significant influence in the setting up of the car pre-race and then the management of the car during the race. I think 20 years ago it would have been, hey, I'm hearing there's a leak. And today, I spent 15 years in men's tennis. The drivers are another one of our great reasons for growth. They're smart, they're young, they're hungry and useful in growing the sport. And quite frankly, they could be an outstanding talent, but if they can't deal with the data, if they don't have the personal bandwidth to add value to their results, then they don't get the ride.
Yes, today's drivers are definitely very, very tech savvy, very tech savvy.
Thomas Phelps of Laserfish. I'm just curious because at the 2019 or so Wall Street Journal CIO Network, we talked a lot about automation and jobs that will be eventually displaced. One of the key jobs was actually truck driving, right, which is today is very different. What do you think the role of the human will be in driving the car in the future, let's say 10 years from now? What part of that experience or that driving part will be automated versus still human powered?
Yeah, well, I can tell you our philosophy about it. I'm not sure I'm clairvoyant enough to get to the right answer over 20 years. But we believe in learning. And so we've partnered with an Indianapolis-based not-for-profit that has organized the Indy Autonomous Challenge. And they started, it is really an autonomous race car. It's our sort of AAA car, the level of car with horsepower just below the INDYCAR series. And the cockpit is just full of technology. There's no driver. And it's not like somebody's somewhere else with a joystick. It is all programmed. And they went out and they couldn't get them out of the pits when it started. And this was a competition organized by, I think it was like 10 universities around the globe, engineering schools. And sure enough, within a year, they weren't actually racing, but they set up competitions where one car could pass the other. And now they've gotten up to, I don't know the exact speed, but over 150 miles an hour. So, we heard from some of our former drivers who said, what are you idiots doing? You don't want drivers in the cars. No, but we want to learn. So the technology, think about the unbelievable GPS systems, the sensors that go into that. Their suppliers who have gotten interested in IndyCar for technical purposes. It's just a great kind of development, horizon expanding opportunity for us. But I think as long as I'm around, there'll be drivers behind the wheel.
It's going to take some time. 25 years ago, I was working with some people at Stanford University, and the biggest amount of effort we had to make is to write algorithms to make a car just go straight.
We did that. The Autonomous Challenge, the big test was out in like a proving ground in wherever it was, some desert. And how close to the line could it go for a couple miles? It was unbelievable technology.
Patrick Weldon, Polaris. You're in motorsports, I'm in power sports, so there's some passion there that's shared. My question is, you got 2,000 points of connectivity coming in. One of the things that when we watch the video, everybody's like, oh, look at that crash. You know, there's some excitement, even in NASCAR, F1, whatever you want to call it. And with all that data coming in, and the teams are able to predict how it's going, are you taking away some of the thrill and excitement of, oh, look at that crash? Are you making it safer? And if you have, what's your percentage in decrease in crashes?
It's an interesting contradiction, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a great, I don't know.
And the only reason why I bring it up is we love racing too, and boy, you see that crash, you're like, oh man, is he all right?
You know, when I first got in this sport, I was looking at some data that showed an absolute correlation between really dangerous days of IndyCar, which were horrendous in some respects, and the popularity of the sport in today. And you know, people like to tune in to see really crazy stuff happens. There's no question about it. So we're trying to walk a line. We work very hard to make it safer. So you saw us put, as that other series did, a similar technology in front of a driver, so you can't get clocked by debris and stuff in the air. It also, if the car rolls, it helps with that. So we don't keep data on the number of accidents, the number of crashes, but we keep real data on what happens. And we have great medical engineers who analyze exactly what the effects were, G-forces, what it does to the driver and all the rest of it, so we can learn from every single incident and see if we can make it safe.
Teams are not able to predict, hey, get into this other lane, you're coming up on a turn, and there's a collision. They're not.
Oh, they hear it. I mean, there are spotters around the course, and they're all getting that information, but they're going pretty fast. So they can get to the next turn real quickly. One other thing we're working on, if we've got another second, is a hybrid for next year. And it's different than other hybrids in other series because it's original technology that's taken us, we're a year late, frankly, in developing it. It's not batteries, it's capacitor packs that have to go through all these vibrations and the heat sensitivity and all that. It's going to be fantastic. I think it will be introduced at the beginning of the next race season to augment the horsepower in the internal combustion engine. So for us and for drivers, more horsepower is just better, more passing, more exciting racing. It can even do things like if they run off the track a mile and a half away on a road course. Right now we got to send a wrecker to go out there and restart it because you can't start an Indy car without an electrical start. Now they can do it with a hybrid by pushing a button. It's going to be a really big improvement to the sport and obviously makes us more sustainable.
Hi, Joe Hernandez from Femero. You mentioned, the sport has come a long way, right? When guys were just gruff and, had to be courageous to now you have all these data points. 2,000 data points, I think, is a considerable amount. And I'm just wondering, did you start wide and narrow that down, or how did you decide which data points were the ones that needed to be tracked?
Well, I didn't, is the short answer to your question. We have a whole lot of really smart engineers and technology people, and we have a lot of help from an amazing company here. But my sense is that it's not start wide, narrow it down. Maybe the highest level thinking. There's a lot of stuff we haven't gotten to yet, but it's really building it up. We don't want to mess it up as we go. And connectivity and those conditions I tried to describe were, you had to feel confident that you can make whatever it is we're going to do work. We don't want to go back to people with, slide rules trying to keep track of who's ahead in a race.
Listen, I might finish off with one question to Tanvir. Given your experience with IndyCar, what do you think are the lessons that other businesses can learn from the way that IndyCar has deployed your data?
So, data is center of everything that we do. Till a few years ago, companies didn't have enough data about their customers and their markets. Today, the problem is we have too much information, exactly like you said, the 2,000 data points, and the ability to do something with that. Now, if you want to build a business of tomorrow, you need to give data-driven decisions that sort of enhance the customer journey at every touch point. And the need for data-driven decisions is not something new. Every business has known it. But the reality was that to build the data warehouses of yesteryears, you really had, it cost an arm and a leg. With today's technology, you can actually use the same information to derive insights without mortgaging the farm. Today, you don't have to aggregate data to be able to use that. So I think what we saw at INDYCAR and what we are seeing is different points of data are relevant to different people in the organization. And today you can do that without investing millions and millions of dollars in the traditional way of building data warehouses.
Excellent. Well, look, Mark and Tanvir have been very generous with their time and their thoughts, and we should be generous with our applause. Thank you.